I got a question for you. What is college football? Let's say you're walking through the food court in the mall. It's what I did as a kid. And you're walking over to Sbarro or Corn Dog 7, and then someone cuts you in line and says, hey, before you get your corn dog there, tell me something about college football. I don't know anything about this sport. I know you're passionate about it. Sell me on it. I got 60 seconds. Go. How would you sell someone who's totally agnostic on college football? They don't know anything about it. They're interested to learn, okay? They're not opposed to it. They're not for it. They're totally neutral. They are there to be converted. How do you sell them on college football? What would you explain to them? You could show them video clips, of course, but remember, you got 60 seconds. I'll tell you, this is a really good question that someone posed to me the other day. And I got a ton of feedback because I put it out on Twitter and whatnot, and a lot of you answered me. We had a ton of responses. So some of the areas that I would go is, number one, you've got to explain the concept of how different a game day environment is in college football than in the NFL. And I assume that this person would know about the NFL, because who doesn't know about the NFL? You got to have partaken in these game day environments in order to fully appreciate them. See, Colin's rolling some B-roll right now, and you'll notice a lot of what you're seeing, in fact, everything that he's shown so far, is not in a stadium. He's going through tailgate areas, he's going through quads and groves, and he's showing all forms of succulent meat smoking, immunity to all of it, of course, an ocean of canopies and tents probably purchased at Academy Sports and Outdoors, and just a sea of humanity. And that's every Saturday before the game starts. I know you guys tailgate in concrete jungles in the NFL on Sundays. I know you do, but even you guys aren't ignorant enough to tout your pregame and game day environments against the likes of college football. And if you've ever experienced that, I think you also start to understand a lot of the pageantry, a lot of the tradition, but your game day environments. And also think about this. Keep in mind, I have 60 seconds to do this, but just pretend like I'm talking really fast. The spectacle of campuses, campi is the plural of campus on this show, the spectacle of campi. Think about how inverted this is from the NFL. So in the NFL, every team, aside from Green Bay, plays in a big city. So you have a lot of people who live all over the place. You know, some of you may live in Atlanta. Some of you may live in Ackworth. Some of you may live, up north in Clayton or down south in Columbus or Macon. But everyone kind of migrates to the big city for the game. You may live in Harrisburg, or you may live in York, but you migrate to Philadelphia for the game. In college football, it's the exact opposite. A bunch of people from big cities, mostly alumni, but in many cases not, they make it a point to leave the cities and go out in the middle of nowhere and turn this little map dot into like the second or third biggest town in their state for a few hours, about 8 Saturdays a year. It's so beautiful. Like, Lincoln Financial Field is something that's in Philadelphia. Beaver Stadium is what State College, Pennsylvania gravitates around, like it exists around that place. Tuscaloosa, Alabama sort of exists around Bryant-Denny Stadium, and that's just not something that you would say about the skyline or the scene in Dallas, which is not even home of the Cowboys. It's out in Arlington. But Phoenix, Arizona is Phoenix, Arizona, whether or not you've got the Cardinal Stadium. Do we really say the same thing about College Station, Texas? Do we really say the same thing about Fayetteville, Arkansas? I think not. Hey, quick timeout. Check and see if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you're not, I humbly ask that you click subscribe. It's free. It doesn't sign you up for anything. What it does is it helps us keep this show free so we can just do college football year-round. All right, back to the clip. Also, passion is something we have to talk about. Passion. It's tough to describe, isn't it? You know it if you've got it. You know it if you're a big-time college football fan. Most of you watch the NFL, too. I'm working all day on Sundays, so I hardly ever get to watch the NFL. It's on, but it's in the background. I'm not a diehard fan of any team. I don't play fantasy football. Ironically, I got out of it as it really got popular. I don't know why. But I don't feel it on Sundays like some of you do. But there is a huge, huge swath of our audience that watches college football and watches the NFL. And there are pros and cons of each. But you know the passion and the intensity on Saturdays is second to none. Now, you know that even though you watch both. How do you explain that to somebody, though? Because someone who watches, the Kansas City Chiefs and not really a big fan of Missouri or Kansas or Kansas State, they would say, hey, man, when I watch Chiefs games, that's plenty intense. Of course it is. On the field, there's no more intense competition in the world. There's no more physically intense competition in the world than what you see on Sundays on an NFL field. What we're talking about, when we're talking about passion and intensity, and in some cases just outright hatred or utter jubilation in college football, extends well beyond what's happening on the field. And I'll tell you what it is. It's culture, it's ideology, it's worldview. The state of Alabama is a perfect example. Auburn and Alabama don't just compete on the football field. These are people with different views on life. These are people with different worldviews and ideologies. And they think theirs is right and the other's is wrong. In some cases, they think theirs is good and the other is evil. I'm not trying to change it because I love it. I mean, I was born in the middle of it, so I love it. But you got to understand the symbolic validation of one way or the other is something that plays out on the football field late November. You can't understand how passionate people get about that. Someone posted a clip from AL.com of a past article they wrote, which said, people of Alabama, please stop shooting each other over football. And that article was written in response to the fact that a fan of one team had shot the other after the Iron Bowl, which is not funny. However, it's something that really happened. But this exists. It doesn't really exist like that in the NFL. Chiefs and Raiders play. I know of some of the historic rivalries in the NFL, but it's just teams playing teams. It's franchises playing franchises. These are like competing worldviews on Saturday. It's a great thing. While I'm at it, rivalries mean something way different in college football still than they do in the NFL. I think you look no further than Michigan, Ohio State. We had a really big dust-up on the show last week about how there are some people, I still think this is a fringe minority of fan, but there are some fans who are wanting to say lately that since Ohio State lost the game, but they won the national title, that means the outcome of that rivalry game doesn't really mean much anymore, which is garbage. I'd use stronger language, but I want little Timmy to be able to ride to work with you in the mornings and listen to the show, but it's garbage. That rivalry game always has and always will mean, in the minds of some people, more than the outcome of the national championship picture itself. Now, you don't have to understand that. And if you're not part of a very intense rivalry, you won't understand it. That is totally fine. But if you grew up a Michigan fan, you grew up an Ohio State fan, don't really care if you went there or not. If you've been immersed into that culture and that way of life throughout the entirety of your existence, you understand that there is a void in you that can only be filled by beating that other team. And it doesn't really matter what trophy they hand you in Indianapolis or some other random sterilized neutral site environment at the end of the year. It's great. It's great to win a Big Ten title. It's great to win a national title. But there's no hatred that is woven into your DNA at birth for some team that you happen to come up against in a bracket. But there is for that team in Ann Arbor or that team in Columbus. There's nothing like that anywhere else in American sport. There's nothing like that. Even the other college sports, there's really nothing that matches that. You don't have it across the board, but you got it a few places. I mean, I would even take you off the beaten path to just experience Utah versus Brigham Young. You know, most people, including me, haven't been able to go to that game. Listen to those people talk. Listen to them. Out in Salt Lake, I do a fair amount of radio out there. Listen to them. It's unbelievable. And then not to mention your traditional rivalries. I mean, go hang out on the sideline and watch Georgia, Florida play. Doesn't matter what the records are. Just watch them play. But feel it. Feel it. And then understand we don't really have this anywhere else. What I'm trying to say is what makes college football great, I think in some cases has to be experienced or maybe has to be born into. Now, that doesn't mean you can't convert into being a college football fan and can't slowly come to understand what makes it great. Because I got a bunch of people watching and listening to this show right now who fit that description. But it's not for everyone. Everyone's not going to understand it. And one of the great soapboxes that I climb on a lot is the fact that that's okay. If you've got a high-level mustache, a TV executive in the room, they would lead you to believe that we've never arrived. We've got to do whatever it takes and bend the sport however we can to get the next viewer and to get the next decimal point move on a rating. And I'm like, there's a point of sort of terminal velocity of this sport where we have maximized the value, and any step further, any more brushstroke begins to ruin the painting. And it doesn't matter at the outset if more people look at the painting. If you're ruining it, you're ruining it. And in college football, you get to a point, I think in some cases we're already there, although the sport's not nearly as ruined and not nearly as beyond repair as it's made out to be, not even close, actually. It wasn't built overnight. You can't tear it down overnight. But I think there are some places in some aspects of college football, some people in charge of college football that don't always understand that concept. But I'd also tell you, what Mac Brown told me last year when we had him on the show. There are plenty of people around the sport who do get it, obviously. And for a while, they sat back because they were just confident other people would take control. And in the absence of strong leadership, weak leadership worked its way into the room. And when strong leaders get tired of watching weak-minded leaders in the absence of the strong kind ruin something that's great, then the strong leader has to step in. And the benefit of that is the weak ones aren't really all that hard to get out of the way. Just a quick elbow nudge and they're out of the way. You hope that it hasn't been run into the ditch too thoroughly and you can still get it back up on the road. But make no mistake, okay, I could complain just like you guys can complain about this and that we don't like about the sport right now. It is, by 10 miles, maybe more, the greatest sport on the face of the earth. So I don't know if I could fit it in 60 seconds, but if you gave me 10 minutes or thereabouts, I think that we could sell pretty much anyone who likes sports, maybe even someone who doesn't, on college football.